Well, whether you're in business or in politics, the key to success is leadership. That's the message from someone who knows from her own experience, Carly Fiorina. Take a look.
Carly Fiorina started her career at the bottom rung of the business ladder and went on to become an executive with AT&T and Lucent Technologies, and in 1999 was named the chairman and chief executive of Hewlett-Packard, the largest technology company in the world, making her the first woman to run a Fortune 20 company. Fiorina tapped into the leadership skills forged in the business world to run first for the U.S. Senate in 2010 and then for the GOP presidential nomination in 2016. Today, Fiorina says she's still committed to the fight to bring citizen leadership back to the United States, and she says she's considering a possible run for the U.S. Senate in 2018. This is the kind of hypocrisy that we have.
Well, Carly Fiorina is here with me right now, and we welcome you to the 700 Club. Welcome. Thanks for being with us.
It's my great pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're an observer. I didn't realize that you were actually an advisor to General Hayden at the NSA and then worked with the CIA. You kind of didn't bring that out when you were running for president. Why not?
Well, I did. I tried to bring it out whenever I could, but frankly, for someone like me that wasn't very well known, when I started running for president, it was sometimes hard to break through and get people to pay attention. But Mike Hayden brought me into the NSA to help him with some transformational things he was trying to do with that agency. And I've led a lot of change in my life. And then I chaired the advisory board at the Central Intelligence Agency when he was there.
You chaired the advisory board?
Yes, sir.
Why didn't you tell us about it? You were running for president. We didn't learn that. You know, you were so modest. Huh?
I told people about it.
They weren't listening.
It was, you know, on the reality show called The Presidential Race, it was hard to break through sometimes. So.
Well, that's a big deal. I mean, you were chairing a CIA committee and you were advising the head of the NSA. That, to me, is a big deal.
Well, thank you. First of all, it was a great honor and privilege to do it. And so I know, having held the highest clearances available to a civilian for a number of years now, I know how important it is that the private sector support our intelligence community. I've seen it from that side as an executive and a CEO in business, but I've also seen it from the other side. And you know, our intelligence community has such important work to do. And like every other government agency, the challenges they face today with terrorism are different than the Cold War.
The word is that the intelligence people who used to be in the Obama administration are now leaking stuff about Trump. Is there any truth in that, do you think, or not?
Honestly, I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. What I do know is that if you look at the history of Washington, D.C., leaks are pretty common, actually. And I know that bureaucracies tend to stay in place as presidents come and go. And so while obviously the subject of these leaks, a possible connection between Russia and our electoral process, which is clearly concerning, while the subject of these leaks may be new, I think leaks in Washington, D.C. is nothing new.
Well, Nixon had the plumbers to fix the leaks. And
well, that's right. And there were lots of leaks during the Obama administration as well.
Sure. Well, let me ask you, viewed from 30,000 feet or whatever, what do you see this country? What would you say are the top 2 or 3 major issues confronting us in order to be done with?
Well, I think they are the top issues, frankly, that President Trump is trying to address in his budget. And I actually think, set aside whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or somewhere in between, I think Americans kind of agree on our big challenges. Number one, we have to get this economy going again. We can't just keep talking about dividing the pie. We have to start growing the pie again and lifting every American up, regardless of their circumstances. Secondly, we have to make sure that this nation is safe. And obviously, we have challenges today that are very different than the challenges of even 10 years ago. Third, and I think this is equally important, I think as an exceptional nation, we have to lead in the world. And I think as an exceptional nation, we need to come together again. I think unifying this nation is important. This is a nation divided right now, and it doesn't matter why, or we don't need to talk about whose fault it is or why it is. But I think we need to unify once again around this being the place for where people aren't defined by their circumstances.
My father was a high-ranking Democrat in the Senate for many years, one of the senior people, and they had comity with the Republicans. They prayed together, they met together, they were good colleagues, you know, and they admired one another. Now there's a bitterness and rancor that I have never seen in my life up there.
I know, it's very concerning. And what's interesting to me about that is when you travel the country, as I have for years, but particularly running for president, most people aren't political, actually. I mean, they don't get up and rush off to a political rally. Their days aren't filled with political arguments. Most people are just trying to do the best they can every day.
Sure.
And on the majority of things, we don't agree on everything as Americans. But honestly, and this sounds perhaps crazy based on the partisanship you see in politics, honestly, I think Americans agree on about 80 or 85% of the stuff. And so one of the problems with politics now, I think, is the tone of politics and the bitterness and the rancor, the anger, the insults, the arguing, the fighting back and forth. It isn't how most people live their lives, actually.
Well, they have to get along with their neighbors. They have to.
That's right. And people want to get along, actually. Most people don't wake up trying to have a fight with somebody. They don't. They don't. They're trying to have a good day and do the best they can.
Let me ask you about, you took on Hewlett-Packard, the gigantic corporation, and you had a pretty successful run. The press hadn't given you credit for it, but you grew the GDP. I mean, the top line. What was it?
Well, we
30%?
doubled the size of that company, the revenues. We went from $40 billion to $80 billion. And we were growing an $80 billion company at 9%. We were generating 11 patents a day.
11 patents a day?
A day. We were growing our profitability.
Your successors, what did they try to do? They were trying to make it into a software company and get away with the machines, or they were trying to make it a machine company and get away from the software? What were they trying to do?
Well, I think different successors had different emphasis. But in general, Hewlett-Packard was, and still is, unique in that it's a very diversified technology company and has businesses in everything from software to services to those little cartridges that you hate to buy because you think they're too expensive to refill your printer. 100 patents in those cartridges, by the way. But let me just say, change is hard. It's very hard. And it's particularly hard to change entrenched institutions. This is why I think we have a challenge now in Washington. The American people clearly voted for change. But these big institutions, they're going to be hard to change. And we will not get the change that we need. I think the changes we need are, we got to take power out of Washington and return it where it belongs, to states, to communities, to families, to businesses, to individuals. We have to prioritize our problems. But change of that magnitude, and it is huge magnitude, because the status quo always has great power, is going to take all of Americans to support change.
Well, it sounds so nice, but do you really think that's going to happen? I mean, is that a little Pollyannish or not?
Well, look, I despair sometimes of the tone of our politics, as I said. And that's why, one of the reasons I ran for president is I think we do need real change, real accountability of these vast bureaucracies in Washington, and I understand what that takes. But secondly, I ran because I do think ours was intended to be a citizen government of by and for the people. I think we have too much power in Washington. I think we have too much power in the presidency, honestly. I think we have too much power in our politicians. And one of the things that leaders know, look, I believe leaders are made, not born, that leadership has nothing to do with position or title, and that a leader, first and foremost, is someone who chooses to make a positive difference. I think Americans can choose to make a positive difference in their communities, in their families, in their lives every day.
you have left a very successful business career, and you've had some ups and downs, but now there's a rumor that you are here in Virginia and that you might well be looking at a Senate seat that is now held by Tim Kaine. Is there any truth to that rumor?
Well, I do live in Virginia. My husband and I met and married in Virginia.
Strange as that may sound.
My husband and I met and married in Virginia over 35 years ago, and our kids and grandkids are here. And so we moved back home to Virginia. We think of Virginia as home about 6 years ago.
Oh, good. All right.
And so here I am in Virginia. That's a fact. Whether or not I'm going to take on a Senate run in Virginia, time will tell. You know, here in Virginia, as you well know, we have pretty important elections in 2017.
I do.
We have a governor's race. We have a lieutenant governor's race. We have an attorney general's race. So let's get through those.
Well, Terry McAuliffe parachuted in, you know, and won the governorship, and it's interesting what they're doing. But you're not interested in governorship, your Senate you're talking about. Or is that too much to say right now?
Well, I think it's too much to say right now.
Okay, well, I won't, this will not be
I'm
your
flattered by the rumors, and we shall see.
Well, if you'd like to make an announcement when you run, please come. We'll
I'll
offer
come
you
do
this
it here.
program. All right, fair enough. Well, something else that is amazing, you had breast cancer, and your Christian faith sustained you. Tell us about what you went through with that.
Well, all of us have ups and downs, to use your phrase, in life, but two of my toughest challenges, certainly one was breast cancer. 2 weeks after my final treatment, we also lost our younger daughter to the demons of addiction. And so it was a very, very difficult period. Mm-hmm. Jesus Christ sustained me. There is no doubt.
Yeah.
There is no doubt. And what is amazing to me about that period is I look back on it, and of course you don't wish hardship or cancer or the death of a child on anyone. There is nothing worse. But there were blessings in that time.
Yeah. Real
blessings. And the Bible tells us that. Jesus tells us that He is always there with us, and there will always be blessings, and He will not take us somewhere we cannot stand. But I've learned that and lived that over and over and over in some of the most difficult times.
Was your breast cancer, had it spread, was it metastasized? Or,
I had stage 2.
Yeah.
And it had spread to my lymph nodes.
Oh,
It was very aggressive. It had not been detected in a mammogram.
They did a mastectomy?
Yes. And so
you had to remove the lymph nodes as well?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I had 11 rounds of surgery.
Good heavens.
It was a very tough time. And yet, in those very tough times, and at the same time, we were dealing with our daughter's addictions. In those very tough times, I came to know what real love is, what real faith is. We were blessed. My family and I were blessed by the kindness of so many strangers.
And Jesus stayed with you. There was no question He was there.
There is no question.
Yeah.
There is no question.
Well, I wish you the very best, and it's so nice to see you and that you overcame. My wife had breast cancer, you know, she had a mastectomy. That was almost 30 years ago, and she's hale and hearty, except she had a little something that just happened. But anyhow, we go through these things.
And we wish her well.
Thank you. She's recovering. Thank the Lord. Women are fighters. I'm amazed.
Yes, you know, sometimes you don't have to yell and scream to be tough.
That's right. Yeah. Very quiet but strong. Well, anyhow, I wish you the very best. And as you're speaking on leadership, are you traveling around the country, by the way?
Yes, I am. I'm so delighted to be at Regent today, speaking about leadership. And then actually, I'm leaving here and going on to Texas. So.
Well, God bless you. Well, thank you so much for being with us. And remember, you've promised now, when you declare for the Senate in Virginia, you're going to come back and make the announcement on this program.
All right, there you go.
All right, thanks, Carly. God bless you.
All the best. God bless you.
You too.